So it's really helping them convince themselves that they have value and coming from that particular mindset. That's where the mind gets set, and not these self-protective barriers that are keeping them from being more successful.
You're listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with your host, Michael Palmer. Listen each week as inspiring guests share their secrets of success to help you increase your confidence, work smarter, and build a business you love. This episode of The Successful Bookkeeper is brought to you by PureBookkeeping.com, the proven system to grow your bookkeeping business.
Welcome back to the Successful Bookkeeper podcast. I am your host, Michael Palmer, and today's show is going to be a great one. Our guest is a recognized sales expert who is focused on tackling sales call reluctance and is helping salespeople and business owners keep their pipeline full. She has worked with powerhouse organizations, including Fortune 50 corporations like Xerox, Bank of America, and Wells Fargo. Connie Kadansky, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Michael. I'm so pleased to be here.
It's great to have you. And, sales call reluctance. The moment I saw that, I thought, oh boy, this is going to be delicious. So, Connie, before we get into all of that, tell us about you, your career journey leading up to this point.
Well, my first sales opportunity was when I was 5 years old. And my piano teacher had me selling poppies on Veterans Day to all the neighbors. I had more fun than my Pekingese puppy. Asked people to buy, and they said yes. And so I believe that when you really look at people who enjoy sales, there's something that we get emotionally by convincing people to do something. So I think I was born with that fun part of enjoying that process. So fast forward to having a paper route, and then I went on to court reporting, believe it or not, because I was a really fast typist. And then that led me to working with a prominent attorney. And then I got into sales, and I experienced sales call reluctance, which is that emotional hesitation to proactively prospect and promote myself. And I needed to cure that because I was determined to succeed. So my solution to the call reluctance actually led me to the most fun 25-year career imaginable. So for the last 25 years, I have trained and coached thousands of sales professionals in hundreds of companies, large and small.
It's remarkable. Absolutely remarkable. And what's interesting is that the reluctance, going back to selling poppies at people's doors and actually having a fun time to actually not enjoying that, and then discovering a whole career of it, helping people. Now, when you said that you've been helping people, I think, does it require brain surgery?
No, that's a good question. And it requires a shift in mindset. And I always say, we hear mindset. Well, who is setting the mind? Who is setting the mind for your professional listeners on helping them get comfortable promoting themselves and their services? So that is where that I have the technologies and the diagnostics to really help people get on the other side of being fearful of promoting themselves professionally and ethically.
Wow. Now, is it something that, whenever because we've talked about mindset on the podcast many times, And I often wonder, what do we talk about before mindset? I mean, mindset is one of the key things to accomplishing anything. And yet so many people struggle with this challenge of reluctance. I mean, it's not even just in sales. I mean, reluctance to do lots of things in their lives, but sales is a big one. And so I wonder, how did you discover the solution?
Well, there are two behavioral scientists out of Dallas that have 45 years of research around it, and I'm a licensee of theirs. So they own the trademark. They've written the best-selling books, and they were working for years under the cognitive behavioral psychology solution. And basically, when you said mindset, it's whatever you think triggers an emotion that alters action. And so that's cognitive behavioral psychology. And what I have done in the last few years is I have linked with performance psychology, positive psychology, and neuroscience to help people really get a different mindset, because we all have ways that we sabotage ourselves. And all a saboteur is it's a mental habit. It's a mental habit. And when people can realize that that mental habit was created to protect them, and really looking at, so instead of allowing my saboteurs to run the show, what else is available for me? And really, it's that essence in somebody, that wise person in them that knows their value. So somebody who is comfortable in promoting their services, they know their value, and they know that they're here to solve problems. And the selling definition that I use is simply solving people's problems for a profit. And that's all your professionals do, right? They get paid because of all their credentials and education. So it's really helping them convince themselves that they have value, and coming from that particular mindset. That's where the mind gets set, and not these self-protective barriers that are keeping them from being more successful.
I have some exciting news for you. The Successful Bookkeeper podcast now has a free global virtual event called the Successful Bookkeeper Summit. That's right, it's a 2-day online conference featuring 20 incredible speakers from the bookkeeping, accounting, and business worlds, some of which include best-selling author of Profit First, Mike Michalowicz, and pricing expert Mark Wickersham, to name just a few. At the summit, you'll receive tips on how to price your bookkeeping services, market your business, hire great staff, and so much more. It all begins on December 2nd, 2021. To secure your free spot, visit thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com/summit. Again, that's thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com/summit. Don't miss this chance to rise up and change your bookkeeping business in 2022. Register today, and I'll see you at the summit. Now, let's get back to our interview. It's one of those things that, it resonates for me. I've been selling and promoting things my entire life, like yourself. I did the poppies and numerous other things growing up, and I've had times where it was just super easy and times where it's reluctance. But I also take reluctance into really anything in my life. Maybe there's a difficult decision to make, or there's always some voice that's, for or against. And so I think for this, as you were talking about it, it's like, yeah, imagine, our listener right now is sitting there thinking, oh, I've got to go make a sales call, or I got to go introduce myself to somebody, and they're, like getting, sweaty palms thinking about it. But what if it wasn't like that? What if the palms were like, let's go, let's do this. You got this. I mean, what would be possible in our listeners' life?
It's incredible. It's transformation on steroids. Because let's get real, your listeners are not going to make cold calls. I don't promote making cold calls. They don't need to make a cold call. Is really the best way for them is to leverage relationships and build strategic alliances. And also, your professional listeners, they have offices, and do they know all the other businesses that surround them? And are they walking in the door? Are they introducing themselves? Are they dropping different things off? And it's really for your listeners is managing their visibility in their marketplace. And so thank you, Michael, for creating a bigger picture of imagine what would your business be like when you are comfortable promoting your services. How many of your listeners are considering and thinking, I need to raise my prices? And they're uncomfortable because the saboteur says, oh, you raise your prices, somebody will go somewhere else. And so you're right. It is everywhere, that reluctance, but there's a way to get it on the other side. It's exciting.
It's very exciting. And I know, I'm thinking right now, it's like, I just want to give that to them. I want to help unpack this for them. I get the benefit. Our listener, I hope you get the benefit. And just like Connie has spent 25 years figuring out how to get this done and get it done well, gets paid great money in the world because she creates great value in the world. So you too can do this. And Connie's going to help us do it today.
Yes, indeed.
And I think, I don't know if I've gotten this excited about a specific, so narrow call reluctance on the podcast in such a long time, where I was like, wow, if we could even make just a tiny, tiny improvement in this area, the benefit would be massive. So where would we begin to, you've started to talk about, the psychology of it, the actual physicality of it, the way our brains work. Should we start with a bit deeper into that?
Well, the first step in overcoming this fear that limits professionals to promote, ask for referrals, get introductions, develop those strategic alliances is to become aware of it. You have to become aware of it. So sometimes it's under the surface. And so becoming aware of is looking at your own bank account. Are you excited when you look into your own bank account as to how many dollars are in there? Because that's where call reluctance shows up first, in the bank account, in the investment portfolio, and then in the appointment calendar. So to keep a business alive is consistency of new prospects. They're having conversations. And some of your professionals probably have a calendar that's full because they're the worker bees. They do the work. However, is to become aware, are you consistently adding your ideal client to your clientele? Because some people they're not happy with their clientele, or they wish that they could have a higher level clientele. And so the first step is to become acutely aware of how much it's costing you. It costs professionals thousands and thousands of dollars a year. So having that moment with yourself where you look in the mirror and you say, I do not have the ideal business that I want. I'm not making the kind of money I want. I'm not leveraging. So awareness is the first step.
I like that. That speaks volumes. And I like how you've laid it out here. Are we happy with the bank account? Are we happy with the calendar and what's in the calendar and the things that we're doing and who we're meeting with? And then become aware of, are these the clients that we should be, are they our ideal? Do we like working with them? So when we're aware now, I guess that's starting to, I can even put my own self into that. And it's like, yeah, I can feel a shift in the momentum to not just having be a victim of my circumstance, but more so feel this energy of like, hey, let's get this fixed up.
Yes. Yes. And
like
the second step is to assess the call reluctance. Now, I will provide you a link to a complimentary assessment that your listeners can zip through rather quickly just to determine, do I have this hesitation? Because, Michael, there are 16 ways that people hesitate to promote themselves. And I've already mentioned one, which is so true for your clientele, is referral aversion, where they already have an exceptional clientele customer service that could lead them to referrals, and oftentimes they're afraid to ask. And so this assessment determines where they are when it comes to the fear of promoting themselves in their business. And then I also have an investment that is more comprehensive, and there is a financial investment to that, and it measures the 16 types of call reluctance, and it also zeroes in on how comfortable are they when they're having their first meeting with a potential prospect, because that's where some nervous reluctance comes in, and they don't have a formula. And so that assess is you assess, and it's kind of like your clients are assessing their customer and clients all day long and thinking about and giving them advice, but you have to be able to assess it, right, as a diagnostic. So that assessment is a critical part in this whole process, so that the professional can see, oh, this is where I'm really good. So you may have some listeners who are good at presentations, and that's a way that they could position themselves, is to do presentations. And so become aware of where your strengths are, and then become aware of where you really need to take a look at and invest so that you can improve in that area. So that's the assessment portion.
I like it. Now, I want to jump back to something I stepped over in the first step, which was assessing the cost, because I think that's the huge piece here, is that what's all of this costing if we don't like the bank account, we don't like the calendar. What are the costs of that? And people often think, oh, costs like money. I mean, there's mental costs. What's the cost of not being able to take your family on vacation or take time off, or be able to put your kids to school where you want to put them to school, or waking up at night or working on the grindstone all day with clients you don't like. I mean, these are big costs. These are like grinding, your bones down into pulp kind of costs that people often don't think about. And I think, then when we start talking about the cost or investment to change and improve and to remove those costs, it's like, really, we look at an investment of something. It's like, oh, I'm going to invest in improving my life, reducing reluctance. Pretty simple math here.
Yes.
Pretty simple math.
Thank you.
Light bulbs are going off all over for me for all sorts of stuff, because, what I want is I want our listener and thousands of listeners with them of this podcast. These are bookkeepers who really have a massive opportunity to help business owners. I want them jumping up and down, telling people how great they are, how they can help them, and literally calling business owners out and saying there is a better way. Now you've got to there's reluctance to do that. I mean, we're talking about if we talk about people's brand and being aware, it's like having conviction around the value that you drive, if you had that much conviction that you were willing to call out a business owner and say, look, we can do better. You can do better. There's a better way to do this. That's money in the bank. People are going to buy that stuff. That's what they want. And the result is those businesses do better. They're like, oh my God, you got to have me as your bookkeeper, or sorry, you've got to have my bookkeeper as your bookkeeper. That's who they're telling their friends. I mean, this is one of those missing link conversations I'm feeling.
Oh, it is. And thank you for expanding on that. Absolutely.
It's exciting. So we talked about assessment, and that's critical. It's like, where are we strong? Where are we weak? Where are these things coming up? What is our mind saying to us? What's the next step?
To admit. And that is the hardest part, because they have to admit to being vulnerable, because it's when we reach out and to promote, there's uncertainty. We don't know how people are going to respond to us. So there's uncertainty. It's a little uncomfortable. There's a certain amount of emotional exposure. And we call that vulnerability. And that's what causes people to be hesitant and uncomfortable. And so oftentimes people are playing small so that they can escape the potential judgment of others and the fear of the unknown. And so is where people just admit and that's oftentimes when they see an assessment, they go, okay. It's kind of like if you go to get a blood test and it comes back that your cholesterol is 360 and you see it on paper and you go, okay, I get it. I'm going to do something about it. And so people actually have to emotionally reconcile that they have this called reluctance that is costing them big bucks, and admit it. I admit I'm an over-preparer. I admit that I'm looking for the perfection in this. There's no such thing. I admit that it makes me feel uncomfortable asking my clients for introductions. So it's a surrender to this. And the reason that can be easy is because there's a solution. Oh my goodness, there is such a solution. And it's nothing to be embarrassed about. The only embarrassment is living with it.
It's so true. I think of athletes. If we think of a great golfer, they have a golf swing. I mean, people think that great golfers never make a bad swing, that they don't have to do anything to be good at making that swing. But they have a system to ensure that when the swing goes bad, they know how to bring it back. And they've really figured it out. I mean, they've taken all the steps you've talked about in their career and their journey to becoming athletes and to be high performers. And it's really a very similar step, right? And you're at this step, it is to own who, what, all of it, and admit it. I just absolutely love that.
Yes, because think about it. It takes humility to look in a mirror. And the assessment has people look in the mirror and say, okay, I admit. And that is a big part of this. So yes, reconcile to the fact, knowing that there's a solution.
It's remarkable. So this is a tough step, the admitting and owning it step. Is this, where do people, like we've got 3 steps so far, do people fall off typically? This is the most difficult step so far that we've heard. And how would someone can someone do this on their own? Is this possible for someone to go through these steps on their own in their own little vacuum and actually make progress?
Well, there might be people out there that have trained themselves to do this. And what I do is I'm able to lighten it up because people are, it's like clenching a pen. Pick up a pen, Michael, and just clench that pen and hold on to it and hold it tight. You're holding it tight, 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 tight. You cannot do anything. And so I work with people to kind of lighten up around it. And a few coaching sessions with a proper diagnostic can really help people. I don't coach their call reluctance. I coach them in relationship to what is causing them to be reluctant. And so that's where the coaching and training comes in. Doesn't need to be long and drawn out. If people really are determined to build their businesses, if they have the energy to do it, there are some people that they just don't have the energy or the emotional connection to do that. And so that's okay. They can keep on in their business. This is really for the people who seriously want to grow their businesses.
Well, that's our listener, because this is the Successful Bookkeeper podcast, and success is not a destination, it's a journey. And our listener shows up every week listening to this podcast because they want to figure out how to make their journey of success more successful and have more fun doing it and make more money and have more freedom. And so this is our listener is up for this, I'm thinking. And so we'll talk about, we've already talked about, you've got the download of the mini assessment there. You've got the one that people can invest in and do more with you. What's the next step then?
So the fourth and final is to apply proven techniques. So to know and not to do is not to do. You're not going to achieve anything, right? And so an insight is only worth 20%. They have to implement. And so that's where I have a 7-week program that leads them through the evolution of how to go about getting on the other side of this. And so it includes performance psychology, positive psychology, and also neuroscience. So really what I do is I help people to perceive events differently and really build the mental capacity, the mental muscle to be able to handle whatever comes at them. And it really is, it's life training. I keep people focused on their business development. However, it's really life training where they just start seeing and having experiences that they used to perceive as negative, but now they're seeing the positive in it. So it's not positive thinking, it's positive action. Getting people in action to take the steps on a consistent basis to manage their visibility in their marketplace.
This is one of those high octane fuels that will fuel many areas of one's life. And what's lovely about it is that it's got an economic connection to doing it, by doing this one little thing in your life around, getting excited about sharing who you are, what you do, and how you help in your world, in your network, and really being an evangelist of you. Doing that one thing and making more money as a result of it, because more people are going to want to work with you. You're going to be able to say no to more people and say yes to the right people willing to pay you more for the great work that you do. That's going to bleed into other areas of life. This is about leadership. I love this.
Good point.
So I'm thinking, tell me a little bit more about how it works. Like we've gone through all the steps, right?
Yes.
So we got the steps. I mean, love that they're very clear. I think what's wonderful is we have already things people can do by making no investment, no extra money. It's all free. get the download, do some assessment, take a look. Are you happy with the calendar, happy with your bank account? Look at the costs, and then do the assessment. Where are you strong, where are you weak? Make a few decisions about what you can do to improve and get some tools. But let's talk about, if people wanted to go into the high octane program, what would that look like for our listener? Do they work with you? Do they go into a group? Do they start, like, what does the brain surgery look like?
Yes, so they do work with me. And then what I do is I put them in a group of 4 to 5 people that are similar to them. And that's where they learn too. That's where they start learning about what other people are doing around this. And then, so basically what they do is they watch a 1-hour video on either Saturday or Sunday that really zeroes in on how the first 3 sessions are, how they're sabotaging themselves. And then they become very aware of that. And then we have a 1 meeting a week, about 30 minutes, with about 4 or 5 other people that are working on the same thing. So they get to discuss and talk and answer questions and hear themselves talk and be vulnerable, more vulnerable than they normally are. And then the reason that this is working so well is that Tuesday through Friday, there's an app, and they work with the app. So they get a 2-minute focus first thing in the morning that's going to keep them focused on really commanding their brain so that they pay attention to what they're paying attention to. They don't let the fear and the worry. And then 3 times for 2 minutes throughout the day, they get what we call a coach challenge. And that coach challenge, where they just slow down for 2 minutes. And Michael, you know that these bookkeepers, they're working hard and they work through lunch and they just keep powering through till 7, 8 o'clock at night. And they never take a 2-minute break. So they take 3 2-minute. Now, 2 minutes is not a long time break. And then at the end of the day, they just journal on what their reflection was. So it really has them go inward and reflect. And so that's the goal here. And we get them in action. We get them in motion. We identify somebody that is already in their network that they can reach out and talk to, and on a daily basis. So it's not too much that keeps them away from their actual work. It's just a new component that they add that gives them everything they need. And just like you said, it's life mastery skills. It's a journey. It's not a destination. The goal is to get them in this where they see this as an adventure. And I teach them how to emotionally detach from the outcome, because so many people, they're just so attached. Oh, please, please, please just do what I want you to do, right? And also just to slow down and enjoy the process. And when people have that fear and vulnerability, it's hard for them to enjoy the process. However, the goal is they start having success, and then they build on it, and now they have some skills that they can build on. So that's where the neuroscience comes in, by really working on this component that I just shared with you, with the technology, with the app.
I absolutely love it. And I love that people get to go and be with a group. Would it make sense that a bunch of bookkeepers would be in one of those groups, or is it people from different industries? It would probably be pretty cool to have a group of bookkeepers.
Oh, yes. From around the country. They don't know each other. They're in different areas. And oftentimes one of them will share something. Oh, this is what I did. And somebody goes, well, sitting there listening to them, they go, well, I can do that too, right? So it's very motivating to hear what others are experiencing and what others are doing to build their businesses.
I just love this. I think we should do something special. I think we should say, if you're listening this right now thinking, I'm that person, I want to be in this group, I want you to email me, Michael at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com, and say, I want to be in this group with Connie. Connie's going to put together some cool special program. I'm just creating this up as we go here, but she's going to create a cool special program for people that are part of the Successful Bookkeeper community, and it'll be special for you. You'll be with other bookkeepers from this community, and you do this program with Connie. Absolutely love it, and we can talk about and share how the results. Because at the end of the day, you do this, I know it's going to be massive. I mean, I remember always my dad saying, "It never hurts to ask." And why don't people ask? Because there's a reluctance to ask. Can I get a discount? Can I have more? Can I have this? Whatever. If you don't ask, you don't get. And so if we start asking bigger asks in our life, in our business, it's going to lead to great things happening all over the place. So I absolutely love this. And, we've got our summit coming up. If you haven't registered for the summit, the Successful Bookkeeper Summit, you want to get that at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com/summit. The theme of this year's summit is Together We Rise. And I want to see more. I want that tide up. I want our boats all rising in this community, because I know it's going to make a massive difference for the world. Connie, anything to add to that? Do you think this is a good idea or what?
I think it's a good idea, and I'll work with you for a pilot. And also, I don't know if you have booked all your speakers for the summit. I could do a presentation on just getting more into the nitty-gritty part of the neuroscience and the way that we go about that. So I'll throw that out to you, and we can work together with a pilot and just have the experience. And I've worked with other groups in this regard, and
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. It's short notice, but you know what, Connie? You're on the lineup.
Oh,
I love it so much. I love this so much. I think it's going to make such a massive difference. You're on the lineup. So, listener, if you haven't registered, you got to now, because Connie's going to help move the dial for you. So Connie's going to give you even more value with no other thing that you need to do, because I love free. I love giving value. I love it. And I know our listener loves it. But for those that want to learn more, get with Connie. Of course, you want to get into this pilot, email me. We'll get you with Connie. You can reach out to Connie, whichever. But Connie's going to speak at the summit. We're going to get this rolling. We're going to just forget reluctance. Why reluctant about how we're going to do it? Let's just do it. And for those that have registered, you're in luck, because you can just go and we'll get that on the schedule, and you can add that to Connie to your schedule, and come and learn more about this. I'm really clear this is going to make a massive difference. So many of our listeners, Connie, I want to thank you for that. It's amazing.
Oh, you're welcome. And it thrills my heart. It thrills my heart when people embrace their value. And you talked about ask. My tagline is, I help people get their ask in gear. And it is so true when people, they elevate their confidence, and they start empowering themselves, because call reluctance is disempowering. Like, you think about what the call reluctance sounds like is, I'm not really good at promoting my business. I'm not cut out for this. That's very disempowering. So to be able to teach people how to empower themselves, that's where they experience the success. And it's so exciting.
Super exciting. Connie, this has been absolutely fantastic. You've mentioned a few resources as well already. Of course, I'm hoping those will be in your talk or something along those lines. But for the people that want to get at it right now, what's the best way for them to go and get access to these resources you've spoken about?
Well, I will send you the link you can, my
Great.
website.
We'll have the link in the show notes. Absolutely. It's like scroll down and click, people. Love it. It'll be right there, and Connie will get that. And Connie, what's your website? Just so we put it in so people know how to click and get to you right away as well.
Exceptionalsales.com.
Beautiful. That is excellent. So we'll have that link in there as well. But sometimes people are listening and they're driving and they'll just, exceptionalsales.com.
Yes.
Too easy.
You can find me on LinkedIn at Connie Kadansky, and I have dozens of articles and on LinkedIn that you can take a look at that can get your creativity going, get your confidence up, saying, well, I can do that too.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Lots of resources. This is great. Of course, we're going to put this all together. Connie's going to be at the summit. Get to the summit, get registered, get excited, get your times blocked off. And Connie, I want to thank you on behalf of our listeners for your generosity in not only coming and sharing with us on this podcast, but also for your very generous offer of coming to our event. And thank you for being on the podcast.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you, Michael.
It's all our pleasure. And with that, we wrap another episode of the Successful Bookkeeper podcast. To learn more about our wonderful guest today and to get access to all sorts of valuable free business building resources, you can go to thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Until next time, goodbye.
You've been listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with Michael Palmer. For more information and to download the resources mentioned in this episode, please visit us at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Thank you for listening.